What if I told you that an event from over 160 years ago, a storm, not on Earth, but from the sun itself, could literally unplug our entire modern world tomorrow? Yeah, this isn't science fiction. It's a true story, and it's a pretty scary warning about our future. It all started back in 1859.
On September 1st, 1859, people all over the world looked up at the sky and saw, well, this. The sky was on fire with colors so bright, so intense that it felt, biblical. This wasn't just some pretty light show. It was the first sign that something huge, something planetary, was happening.
And things got weird. Really weird. You had auroras, the northern lights, showing up in places like Cuba and Jamaica. Can you imagine? Gold miners out in the Rockies were woken up by the light, completely convinced it was morning. It was so bright you could actually read a newspaper by it at midnight. But for the high-tech gadgets of the day, the telegraph system, it was total chaos. Operators were getting zapped with electric shocks, and the power surges were so strong they literally set the telegraph papers on fire.
Now check this out. This is an actual transcript of a conversation between two telegraph operators right in the middle of all this. They realized the air itself was so electrically charged, they could completely disconnect their batteries, and the machines kept working. They were running their telegraphs on power from the sky, from the aurora itself. And get this, one of them even says it's working better than with their own batteries. Just wild.
So what in the world could cause something like this? Part stunning light show, part technological nightmare. Well, the answer wasn't on our planet. It was about 90 million miles away.
The culprit, it turns out, was a massive storm that erupted straight from the sun, an event so big it would eventually be named after the very first man who saw it happen.
And here he is, an English amateur astronomer named Richard Carrington. He was just doing his thing, sketching sunspots, when he saw something nobody had ever seen before. Two patches of intensely bright and white light just bursting from the sun's surface. He was the first person in history to witness a solar flare. What he didn't know was that he had just seen the opening shot in a drama that was about to unfold across the entire planet.
So what Carrington saw was the flash, the flare. But that flare was like the muzzle blast for something way, way bigger, a coronal mass ejection, or CME. Now, the easiest way to think of this is like a giant solar sneeze. The sun basically just sneezed a billion-ton cloud of electrified gas and particles right at us.
And to give you an idea of the raw power we're talking about, a normal CME, it takes about 3 or 4 days to get to Earth. This one, the one that caused the Carrington event, it made that 90 million mile journey in just 17.6 hours. It wasn't a gentle cloud. It was a solar cannonball shot directly at Earth.
Okay, so that's the history lesson. Super interesting story about a solar storm and some fried telegraphs, right? But here comes the plot twist. This isn't really a story about 1859. It's a story about right now.
You're probably thinking, all right, cool story, but so what? A storm from horse and buggy days broke a few telegraphs. In our world of iPhones and the internet, why should we care? The answer, and I'm not exaggerating, is everything.
And here's why. Back in 1859, their most advanced tech was the telegraph network, basically the Victorian internet. The storm was a strange, disruptive novelty. Today, our entire civilization is built on this fragile, interconnected web of electricity and information. The exact same storm today wouldn't be a novelty. It would be a global catastrophe.
The biggest difference between their world and ours isn't our phones or computers. It's the one thing that powers all of it, the electric grid. And it is shockingly vulnerable.
So here's what happens. When that solar storm slams into Earth's magnetic field, it's like ringing a giant bell. The impact creates these massive electrical currents that flow through the ground itself. They're called GICs. And these rogue currents, they're just looking for the easiest path to travel, which of course happens to be our thousands and thousands of miles of power lines.
And that rogue electricity surges right into the heart of our power grid. Now this whole system, everything from the power plant to the outlet in your wall, it all depends on these things, transformers. They're the critical junctions of the whole network, and they were absolutely not built to handle this kind of energy.
A GIC surge would be like trying to force a whole river through a tiny garden hose. The transformer's delicate copper windings inside would overheat and just melt. We're not talking hours here. We're talking seconds. They'd be fried, destroyed.
Okay, you're probably thinking, so just replace them? Yeah, if only it were that simple.
You see, building one of these massive power transformers is an incredibly complex, long process. It's not something you can just pick up off a shelf.
The reality is, we can't replace them quickly. Each one is custom-made. They require this special kind of steel that's really hard to produce. Even in normal times, the wait list to get one is over a year. Now, just imagine hundreds of them getting fried all at once, all across the country. We don't have a stockpile of spares just sitting around.
And that is when the real domino effect would kick in. Once the power grid goes down, it's not just the lights that go out. No power means no internet, no communications. Satellites and GPS would be knocked out, so no navigation. Financial systems would freeze. Even basic things like pumps for running water and gas stations, they all run on electricity. They would all just stop.
The numbers are just mind-boggling. A report from Lloyd's of London put the potential cost to the U.S. economy alone at $2.6 trillion. But let's be honest, in a world without power for months, maybe even years, money might be the last thing anybody's worried about.
So all of this leads us to the one really important question. We know the threat is real. We know what would happen. So, are we ready for the next one?
And don't think for a second this is just some old theoretical problem. We get little reminders all the time. Just a couple of years ago, a pretty minor solar storm, not even a big one, was strong enough to destroy 40 brand new SpaceX satellites, knock them right out of the sky. And that was just a small storm. See, the Carrington Event wasn't some freak accident. It was just the biggest one we've happened to record. In 1989, a storm took out the entire power grid of Quebec. Then in 2012, a Carrington-class monster storm, a really big one, missed hitting the Earth by just 9 days. 9 days! And just this year, in 2024, another powerful storm lit up the skies. This is a recurring natural disaster. It's a cycle.
Now, the good news is we're not totally flying blind. We have agencies like NASA and NOAA watching the sun around the clock. We can get a warning, maybe a day's notice to get ready. But for a storm as fast as the Carrington Event, that warning might only be a few hours. That's enough time to brace for impact, but it's not nearly enough time to actually prevent it.
So we really have to face it. A storm like this isn't a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when. It's happened before, and it is absolutely going to happen again. So the only real question left is, are we going to be ready for the day the sun turns out the lights?